Welcome in. It is so great to see you again this week for our weekly WTOL 11 Weather Hangout. If you're watching us on WTOL 11 Plus or on YouTube, we appreciate having you along. We got a squad for you today, which means loads of information as we now dive full force into the spring season.
We got a new background, too.
Diane Phillips. That makes me feel like spring, doesn't it?
Yeah, the snow is gone. We've got some tulips back there and signs of spring. We're welcoming you in on March 1st, but whenever you're watching this, good to have you here now that we are officially underway with meteorological spring, and we'll dive into the differences and when we start the spring season, but good to have the full team here.
Matt, does that mean that spring's here to stay then, since we've got the spring background?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope it is. I love the warmer weather.
I thought it was already here. It's been so warm. It's not spring?
Yeah.
Where was winter?
Yeah.
Many of us may be thinking. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about that today's episode, where we kind of came in from a climatological perspective on our winter season. Really, I talked with so many people that said, I never had the snowblower out. I barely had to snow shovel this winter. So we'll talk about all those statistics in our final for our winter season. Matt, what else do we have to come up on this episode?
So yeah, we are pretty much recapping February and what you can expect during March. So yeah, we'll be recapping February and what's to come as we go throughout the next couple of months of spring.
What is one thing for you guys that really kind of just signifies the start of spring? We all know here, Northwest Ohio, Southern Michigan, you have to have patience because we enter into false spring, mud season, gloomy season, return to winter. What's that one element, Diane, that really kind of says, all right, spring is here for sure?
Just like you said, the temperatures, they're all over the place. So for me, it's got to be the bloom, the colors. It's got to look like spring for me. What about you, John?
So the look of spring, yes, absolutely. I also like the sound of spring. You know, the birds chirping, everything just alive with the sounds of spring. And, you know, it really engages all of your senses this spring season. You can even smell some of the blooms around here. And really all of those little signs are a reminder that we have warmer days to come.
Yeah.
I love the smell of fresh cut grass. The first time the lawnmower starts up. No for you?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm like, all right, that is it. I've got the smell of fresh cut grass. That means things have turned green.
Finally.
We get rid of the brown season. Matt,
probably because of my allergies.
It could be. Oh, and we'll have to talk about allergy season as well. To come in a future episode, maybe we'll break down some interesting things. John, you've done a Climate Friday aspect on allergies in the spring bloom as well.
Yeah, and with how unusually mild this winter was, it is going to have some repercussions on not only the allergy season, but potentially the bugs and pests as well. You know, without much of a winter, we could get an earlier start than usual to some of those little nasty parts about spring. But we'll focus on the beautiful flowers and the smells and all the joyful things.
All right, before we get too far ahead of ourselves with all this spring weather talk, winter has existed this year for some areas, maybe not necessarily here in Northwest Ohio, though we did deal with quite a bit of ice up across Southern Michigan. Diane, you had some firsthand experience of that?
Yes, I have family in the area and helping, to pick up those limbs that came down, running around the yard, even pulling them up out of the dirt because they would just fall down. And of course, it's not like the ground is frozen this winter. So any of those limbs would just come down and they would go. So definitely a lot of cleanup. A lot of folks, I know family didn't even get power until 6, 7 days after
the
that
ice
storm.
event, and had reports of a half an inch of ice across parts of Southern Michigan, still recovering from that. But Matt, where is the snow actually falling? Because I'm a guy that's a little jealous of what we're about to see.
Yeah, I mean, the snow is not in the eastern portion of the United States, but it's, of course, in the western portion. There's a man and his dog in Crestline, California.
Wow.
Expected a heavy snowfall at their house this past Saturday following a winter storm that dropped about 28 inches of snowfall in Crestline in his yard on Saturday.
So get this, I saw that with those pictures coming out of California. Yosemite National Park's actually been closed since February 25th. Reports are that they have up to 15 feet of snow, and it may take them days, if not weeks, to dig out. Could you imagine waking up to a site like that? California's just gotten crushed with heavy snow.
Yeah, I would just honestly just go right back inside.
Me, I would take one of those snow piles and I would do that head first dive. Right?
Yeah. You would be like that dog, just
like
having a joyful, great day.
Well, that's the winter we haven't seen, so this is just kind of shocking video for us. We've hardly even seen snow. To see that much of it, well, at least we can watch it.
California needed it. That snowpack is really loaded with a lot of moisture, so once we get that spring thaw, it is going to really fill those reservoirs, which have really been filling up with the multiple atmospheric rivers they've had and the heavy snowfall. Another thing that's on my bucket list, Diane, the Northern Lights. Could you imagine this?
It's on my bucket list too, and we also had folks who were able to see those Northern Lights lighting up the skies. You're going to find that in eastern England on that was this past Sunday, and of course you can see that you have the greens, even some of those bright purples. Oh yeah, those curtains are right there. Just the look. Even Chris, you were talking about seeing them around the Mackinac Bridge here recently.
Lots of reports of central and northern Michigan that had just some gorgeous views this past weekend. It was a fairly strong geomagnetic storm. For those that kind of follow along with that one, it hit a KP index of 7, which tends to bring that view line down into lower Michigan. And there were some gorgeous sights that were all across northern and central Michigan. John, next up, how about this one? Severe weather season.
Yeah, Norman residents woke up to a devastating tornado damage this Monday morning. Of course, Norman, no stranger to severe weather and tornadoes. This is a look at what some of the folks are having to face. And a car was blown into a home, trash bins are in trees, roofs and fences torn apart. And so far, hospital staff have sadly confirmed 12 weather-related injuries. But thankfully, everyone expected to be okay.
Severe weather season is here. A mix of seasons that we just saw in that video. We are just getting rolling right now with this week's weekly Weather Hangout. Appreciate you joining us here on WTOL 11 Plus on YouTube, keeping you connected. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to talk more about our so-called winter season, a look ahead to spring, and also a few things that you could look forward to in the month of March. But here's a look at a quick fun fact. We'll see you in just a few moments.
Can you imagine that? 43 feet of snowfall. Now, this winter hasn't exactly gone down in the record books as one that brought much snowfall. In fact, hard to come by this winter, both in terms of the snow and the chilly temperatures. So when we look back on this winter in February in particular, you may remember it as an unseasonably mild season. February went down as the 7th warmest on record in Toledo history, and those record books date back to the late 1800s, so to even be ranked in the top 10 gives you an idea of just how unusual that February warmth was. Now, if we rank it in terms of the high temperatures, those are the daytime temperatures that you experience when you're out and about during the day. This February will go down as the 4th warmest on record, and we had a number of mild days. Over the course of the month, our average high was a whopping 45 degrees. That sounds more like early spring, doesn't it? Well, this February felt more like early spring with an average temp in the mid-40s. Looking at some of our milder days over the course of the month, our 3 warmest days all hit 62 degrees. That magic number, we hit it 3 times, about once per week it seemed. February 9th, February 15th, February 23rd. Anomalous warmth as temperatures surged to the 60s several times. Now, snowfall is one thing that February will not be remembered for, and we were poised, at least until the last week, to be the first February ever without any sticking snow. Well, we did end up getting a snowfall. That happened last Friday night. We got a little less than 1 inch of snow, and even with that, our biggest quote-unquote snowstorm of the month, we are still tied for the 4th least snowy on record. Number 1 on that list, recorded half an inch of snowfall. That is shared between 1987 and 1899. Each one of those Februaries didn't bring a whole lot of snow, to say the least. 1949 is number 3 on the list, and sharing our title at number 4 with 2023 is 1931, which also brought 9/10 of an inch of snow. Looking back on the whole winter, not much snowfall. Snow was hard to come by. We started off with only 1.2 inches of snow in December, and a good chunk of that happened right before Christmas, just in time for that white Christmas snow. January did bring us a little taste of winter with close to 8 inches of accumulation. Still, that is way below average. And looking ahead to the month of February, just shy of 1 inch of snowfall with unseasonably warm conditions. For a more thorough breakdown of this winter, or at least meteorological winter, and some of the records that we set and the snowfall that we didn't get, subscribe to this week's Climate Friday newsletter. You can subscribe at WTOL.com/email, and we'll have a more in-depth breakdown of this winter and just how mild and snow-free it's been. Now, February didn't bring us much snow, but it did bring us a lot of moisture and rainfall, and that's where we find meteorologist Matt Willoughby. Matt, we got a lot of rain this month, not a whole lot in the snowfall department.
Yeah, exactly. Seems like this winter has been more famous for the rain than instead of the snow, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw pretty much record-breaking rainfall this winter and this February. So to break down the winter, well, we saw 3 heavy rainfall events this winter, all coming in the month of February, and that totaled up just around 4.5 inches of rainfall this winter. Actually, this is our first time seeing over 10 inches of rainfall in about 10 years this winter, and we only, of course, measured less than an inch of snowfall in the month of February. Now, you take it to the month of February, well, actually, this is the 3rd wettest February ever on record, where we saw just under 5 inches of a rainfall. And take you at least the most rainfall in February, well, that hasn't happened in 33 years. And we look at it, our highest rainfall total for one day was 2 inches, and it was just around 2 inches. So it was definitely a wet one, and we'll likely continue to see this wet condition, or at least this wet pattern, as we head closer into March and possibly even into April. We'll have more coming up on the March breakdown coming up right after this weather fun fact.
Matt, how about that? We may be talking more rain than snow in the coming days and weeks as we now enter into the upcoming spring season. Now, 3 things that you could look forward to in the month of March that you could pretty much bank on happening. Let's talk about springing forward. One thing many of us look forward, to be honest, weeks, if not months, as we go through the winter season. When we officially reach that point where we spring forward, that is going to be coming up on March 12th. So what to expect with that when we do get to the time we spring forward? Sunset is going to be getting much later into the evening. By March 31st, the end of this very month, our sunset time, get this, is going to be 7:58 p.m., which is going to mean we're going to have some bit of daylight through about 8:30, and those longer days are going to continue to increase across the area. In fact, over the course of March, you could bank on this one. We gain 1 hour and 27 minutes of daylight, both with that later sunset time and that sunrise time, which will also become a little bit earlier in the morning. The second thing that you can bank on this month, the month of March happening, is our average highs will skyrocket. We start the month generally right around the lower 40s for averages, and March holds the greatest increase in our monthly or our daytime highs over the course of the month. By the end of the month, our average highs right around 55 degrees. That is an increase of 13 degrees as we go through the month of March. Pretty astounding how quickly things can change just over the month of March. One thing that may really kind of start to activate, and there was some hope this was going to be early this year, the start of the Walleye Run, something that many of us, an annual tradition that we look forward to right here on the beautiful banks of the Maumee River. Now, I did just check the water temperature in the Maumee River, right around 39 degrees. It's going to take some warmer days and warmer rain to get that a little bit closer to the mid-40s, and that is about the time that the walleye begin to come a little more active. And we'll have to watch as well the amount of rain that we get, which high water, no good for walleye fishing. The next thing that you could bank on in the month of March, I'm just going to be honest with you, snow still does happen. March can actually be a very active and volatile month where we get lots of ups and downs. And hang on to this one, we at least average 5.3 inches of snow just in the month of March. Safe to say we are not done with snow quite yet. One year stands out as the only year where the month of March did not have any measurable snow. That was just a couple seasons ago, back in 2021. First time in history where the Toledo area registered no measurable snowfall. What was the most snow we've ever seen in the month of March? How about a whopping 17.7 inches to round out the month of March? That was back in 1993. So yes, snow can and does still happen this time of the year. Kind of funny how these seasons work. Let's bring in meteorologist Diane Phillips. And Diane, I could go either way on that, right? I could be okay if we made it through month of March without any additional snow, but also I always say if it's going to snow, let's bring it on.
I was just going to ask, do you think that you just want to play catch up on the snow all here during March, or are you just kind of over it?
I would be okay if we caught up a little bit. Here's the reason why. March snow never sticks around long. So you could get 4, 5, 6 inches of snow. 2 days later, it's 55, 60 degrees, sun's out, and it all melts away. One of my favorite things, too, is when it gets when we get that snow, Diane, and you probably attest to this, and the sun comes out after, just kind of makes the trees glisten. It looks fresh, looks beautiful, and it reminds me of that warmer feel and warmer days that will be ahead.
Yes, the sun really makes a difference when we talk about that March snowfall. Even the sun angle already through that month is really going to change. Yeah, and make a difference. That just means it's a little bit easier to get around if it does have to snow. But well, spring snow, it has happened, and yeah, it is spring, depending on how you want to look at it. So in the meteorology world, we are already talking about spring. So we actually have meteorological seasons. So yeah, I know you have that calendar on the fridge and it says that spring hasn't started yet, but for us, March 1st is the beginning, because we actually break down the year, and you are going to find that every 3 months we have separated into our seasons. So the spring season for the meteorologists, scientists, climatologists, that's going to go all the way from March 1st through the end of May. Then summer's going to start June 1 and go all the way to August, and then September 1 is the beginning of fall. And you get the idea that we're going to actually break our seasons into chunks as far as month rather than waiting on date. And the reason for this is actually going to be based off of data calculations. It's really hard if that date's fluctuating to where here we have that standard. We know it's not going to adjust, so that makes it easier as far as calculating those averages. Just like we were telling you that it's one of the warmer Februaries, one of the least snowiest Februaries. We're able to really calculate that data by using these concrete dates from meteorological seasons. But on the other hand, there's astronomical seasons, and that's what you see there on your calendar. So if you're going to wait for that, March 20th is going to be our spring equinox. Of course, that's going to be determined about the position of the Earth and the sun, the tilt, the rotation. Everything that's out of this world is going to come into play when we're talking about the equinox and also even the summer solstice. But the one thing that I want to point out, and I know that you're noticing too, times like June and September, when we have the solstice, when we have the equinox, sometimes the date varies a little bit. Actually, last year in autumn, the equinox was on September 22nd. This year in 2023, it's on September 23rd. So as you can see, that kind of creates an issue when you're trying to calculate maybe some autumn data. When does it start? The 22nd, the 23rd? And that, though, is why we have those meteorological seasons to kind of help us calculate a little bit better. Like I said, it creates some bounds for us, but you will find we still have 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. It just depends on how you want to look at it, whether you want to go astronomical, meteorological, or if, like we talked about here at the top of our hangout, that maybe you just have to wait for those signs to start showing up outside your window, and maybe also those activities and dates to get outdoors and enjoy some spring weather as you make those plans. Of course, though, that also, though, isn't the only thing that we're making plans for. With it being March 1st, it's a sign of spring, and another sign is ice cream shops. There's a lot of shops that have opened up on March 1st. You can actually find a full list on WTOL.com. But I thought, well, the ice cream forecast for a lot of you, it doesn't matter how cold, how warm, but you always have that ice cream forecast on the WTOL 11 weather app. You just check that. You'll have the daily tab or even those hourly forecasts if you want to break it down for maybe a snack after lunch or go after dinner. You can always see what that ice cream forecast has in store. You don't even have to wait for spring to come. You can always check that on the free WTOL 11 weather app. So if you don't have that, give that a download. We even have more information besides the ice cream forecasts on there. You just got to give it a download and check it out. Of course, we still have more of our weather hangout still to come. Let's take a quick break with a fun fact, and we'll be right back. Okay, I was just talking about ice cream, and we're going for ice cream.
Can tell what's on Diane's mind right now.
How dare you tease us like this?
I know.
I might have to go grab some after this.
I know. Okay, so what's your go-to? What's your favorite flavor? Cone, dish? Tell me all about your ice cream preferences.
So it'd have to be, I would go with any sundae. Buckeye sundae, German chocolate cake sundae is my absolute go-to. I love the caramel,
Very
the chocolate. I got a delicacy for this. The pecans, drizzled with extra caramel. That is a meal in itself, and I have no guilt over it.
We all know what Chris is having for dinner tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what?
No shame.
When you hit almost 60 degrees in early March with sunshine, you could go ahead and do that, no problem.
I was gonna say you deserve it. All right, what's your go-to?
Cookies and cream is always a solid choice. A good chocolate chip cookie dough also is really good. If I'm getting like pre-bought at the store, I really like the Ben & Jerry's like Cherry Garcia ones. There's a lot of texture going on in there. I can't just eat like a plain straight up ice cream. It's got to have like little bits and pieces of stuff in there, like textural elements.
Don't go basic on me now. You got to go big with this.
No basic.
Yeah, you guys are both
Matt, what are
going
you
big.
thinking?
Okay,
pressure's
well, first of all, cookies and cream, that's always a go-to.
Solid.
But I don't know. There's just something about a soft serve ice cream with just a cone.
Like vanilla
Keep
or
it
chocolate or
Just
swirl?
vanilla,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, the swirl too,
He
but
went basic on
I
it.
went basic.
Yeah,
I
he's keeping
said I was going to go
classy.
basic.
No, but like on a hot summer day, it's refreshing.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
feel ya.
love soft serve ice cream, so that's always guilty pleasure for me.
Anything chocolate, anything with brownies.
Brownies is
And
a good one.
to me, it doesn't matter if it's hot or cold. If you want to hang out, get some ice cream, I'll go.
Do you have a favorite, Diane?
Just straight up chocolate. I gotta be with Matt and keep it basic.
Basic.
No problem with that. All right, well, we're definitely into the spring season, so we've said so long to winter, although we may not be done with snowfall, as we talked about, yet this season. But whatever the changes are, the whole team here joining you today and joining you always each and every week. And, of course, as Diane mentioned, on that free WTOL 11 weather app. But we appreciate you watching today on this week's weekly Weather Hangout, whether it's WTOL 11 Plus or YouTube. We hope you have a fantastic day.